The morning light spilled through the blinds, casting stripes across the kitchen table where a bowl of half-eaten cereal sat. A child's humming danced softly through the air, tangled with the clinks of a spoon. Lena stood at the window, arms wrapped around herself, her coffee untouched and cooling fast. Ava's tiny voice floated from the living room. "Mommy, I made the sun purple. Is that okay?" Lena forced a smile without turning. "It's perfect, baby." Behind her, the steady rhythm of fingers tapping on a laptop filled the silence. Tom sat at the far end of the table, his expression flat, eyes pinned to the screen. He hadn't looked up once since he opened it. "I have a presentation at noon," he said, not lifting his head. "Try to keep the house quiet." "We'll be out for most of the morning," Lena replied, adjusting the sleeve of her sweater. "Library and then the park." The silence that followed felt like a wall, thick, unmovable. Ava's humming continued, innocent and unaware. Lena moved through the house on autopilot, packing a snack bag, folding a small sweater, brushing her daughter's curls into a neat ponytail. Every motion practiced, every smile worn like a mask. Outside, the sky was clean and bright, a deceptive kind of cheer. The library smelled of paper and plastic covers, comforting in a nostalgic way. Ava darted between shelves, giggling, while Lena wandered in a haze, her mind drifting. She stopped in front of a display titled "Second Chances" and snorted softly to herself. That's when she heard the voice. Well, if it isn't Lena Hart. Her stomach tightened before her mind caught up. The voice was warm, unmistakable, and painfully familiar. She turned slowly. Derek stood just a few feet away, a book in hand. The same crooked grin that once disarmed her at 17 now rested on his lips. His eyes flicked briefly to the ring on her finger, then back to her face. "I'll be damned," he added. "Didn't expect to see you in this town again." Lena blinked. Derek. Wow. It wasn't just surprise that rooted her in place. It was memory. 1,000 moments stitched together like film reels. Late-night drives, lake water on skin, secrets whispered in parked cars. She remembered the heartbreak, too. The sharp silence after he left for California and never looked back. "I'm visiting my sister," he said, stepping closer. "But maybe fate's got a sense of humor." She smiled, but something in her tightened. "Ava," she called, not looking away from Derek. "Stay where I can see you." He leaned against a shelf. "You look good. Different, but good." She shrugged. "It's been a while." "Yeah, 10 years or so? You married?" She nodded, holding up her left hand briefly. "Happy?" The question hung in the air, brazen, a little dangerous. Lena opened her mouth, then closed it again. "We're fine." Derek raised an eyebrow. "Fine's a loaded word." Before she could respond, Ava tugged on her sleeve. "Mommy, look! I found a book with a turtle in a hat." Lena smiled at her daughter, kneeling to inspect the cover. Her fingers lingered on Ava's cheek a moment too long, grounding herself. When she looked up again, Derek had slipped a small card into her coat pocket with a casual movement, unnoticed by the child. "If you ever want to catch up," he said quietly. "Coffee or whatever. No pressure." And just like that, he was gone, swallowed by the stacks and the faint rustle of pages. Lena stood still for a moment, her pulse quickened. She reached into her pocket, thumb brushing the edge of the card. No name, just a number. That evening, the house was quiet again. Tom was on the couch, eyes flicking between work emails and muted news. Ava was asleep upstairs. Lena sat at the dining table, the card laid flat before her. Tom hadn't noticed she was gone longer than usual. He hadn't asked. He hadn't even glanced her way. Her phone buzzed, screen lighting up with a calendar reminder. Anniversary, 6 years today. She looked at the date in disbelief. She hadn't remembered until now. Neither had he. She turned the phone face down. In the other room, Tom cleared his throat and asked without looking, "You okay?" Lena paused, then, "Yeah, just tired." He nodded and went back to scrolling. Lena looked at the number again. Her hand hovered over her phone. She didn't dial, not tonight. But she didn't throw it away either. The number stayed in her phone for 4 days. Not saved, not deleted, just there, tucked beneath voicemails, updates from the school app, and unread reminders she hadn't acknowledged. Each time Lena saw it, her pulse kicked a little faster, then settled into guilt. On the 5th night, when Tom fell asleep on the couch with his laptop still glowing on his chest, she walked quietly to the kitchen. She didn't mean to call. Maybe just look at it again. Maybe imagine what would happen if she did. Her thumb moved before her conscience caught up. 3 rings, then his voice. "Hey," Derek said, like they hadn't missed 10 years in between. "Didn't think you'd actually call?" "Neither did I." A pause, then a gentle laugh. "Still up for coffee? Or are you just checking to see if I'm real?" She exhaled. "I don't know what I'm doing." "That makes 2 of us, but I'm glad you called." They met the next afternoon at a small cafe tucked between a flower shop and a barber. Neutral ground, no risk of familiar eyes. Lena arrived early, ordered tea, and sat near the back where the light was soft, and the world outside looked distant. Derek walked in 5 minutes later, dressed casually, yet with an effort that didn't go unnoticed. His smile was relaxed, but his eyes searched hers carefully, like he was reading beneath the surface. "You look the same," he said, sitting across from her. "Still too good for this town." "And you still talk like a line from a movie," she replied, though the corner of her mouth lifted. They didn't talk about marriage. Or time. Not at first. They reminisced about high school dances, the music they once swore was the soundtrack of their lives, that one night they got lost on purpose just to watch the sunrise from an unfamiliar hill. "I never forgot that morning," he said quietly. Lena looked down. "I did. Until now." His hand brushed hers across the table, casual but deliberate. Her skin warmed under the contact. The conversation wove between nostalgia and silence. With Derek, the quiet didn't feel heavy. It felt observed, almost cherished. When she glanced at the time, 2 hours had passed unnoticed. "I should go," she said, reaching for her bag. "Will I see you again?" Lena hesitated. "I shouldn't." "But do you want to?" The question echoed louder than it should have. She didn't answer, only left her tea half-finished and walked away with the wind tugging her coat. Back home, Tom was still on calls. He nodded when she entered, mouthing, "Hey." She nodded back. No kiss, no curiosity, just silence, between sentences spoken into his headset. The days that followed became blurred lines, soft-edged routines marked by school drop-offs, quiet dinners, and text messages Lena wasn't sure she should be sending. Derek. Thinking about that. Old Hilltop. You? Lena. Sometimes. Derek. I'm there now. You'd love it today. The messages weren't explicit, but they weren't innocent either. The kind that made her phone feel like a secret pressed against her skin. One evening, as she tucked Ava into bed, the little girl touched her cheek. "You smell like flowers," Ava said, sleepy-eyed. "Did you see Daddy?" "No, sweetheart, I was just out for a walk." Ava blinked. "Did you go with the man from the library?" Lena froze. "What man?" "The one with the smile. He looked at you like Daddy doesn't." Her throat tightened. "You have a wild imagination." Ava yawned. "I just draw what I see." Later that night, Lena opened Ava's sketchpad. Stick figures, crayon worlds. But on one page, 2 larger figures, one with long hair, another with a square jaw, and a heart between them. Farther away, a third figure stood by a house, holding the hand of a smaller one. Lena closed the pad. The affair didn't begin with passion. It began with quiet moments, like a door slowly left ajar, a touch of the hand, a shared laugh in a parked car, a gaze that lingered too long. Then one evening, under the orange glow of a street lamp, Derek leaned in and kissed her. Slow, hesitant, at first. Her breath caught, her hand finding his chest, not to push him away, but to anchor herself. When she stepped back, the night felt different. "I should go," she whispered. He nodded but didn't look away. "I'm not trying to break anything, but I've never stopped thinking about you." She didn't respond. When she opened the front door that night, Tom was in the kitchen, heating leftovers. He asked if she'd eaten. She said yes. And the space between them grew just a little wider. 3 weeks passed, though Lena barely felt their weight. Each day bled into the next, a slow descent wrapped in warmth that didn't belong to her husband. With Derek, time stretched. With Tom, it froze. Derek had become the breath between her obligations, brief encounters, late-night texts, hotel rooms with the curtains drawn tight. It was quiet, almost gentle. That made it more dangerous. She tried to justify it. Tom hadn't touched her in months. He barely looked at her unless something needed doing. Their words were transactional, mechanical. She cooked. He worked. They parented in shifts. The idea of confronting it, fixing it, felt harder than escaping it. One morning, over burnt toast and a silent breakfast, Tom cleared his throat. "My father's coming into town. He'll be staying with us a few days." Lena blinked. "Your father?" Tom nodded without looking up. "Greg? You've never met him." "I thought you two didn't talk." "We didn't, until recently." There was something unreadable in Tom's voice. Not enthusiasm, not dread. Something in between. He called out of nowhere, said he wanted to see Ava, try to do better, whatever that means. Lena felt a chill. When? Tomorrow. That night, she told Derek in a dimly lit parking lot, their hands barely touching. "He's never met Ava," she whispered. "He didn't come to the wedding. Tom never even talks about him." Derek's brow furrowed. "Why now?" "I don't know, but it doesn't feel like a coincidence." Greg arrived on a Tuesday morning with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder and a face weathered by silence. Ex-military, mid-60s, eyes like slate. He hugged Ava with stiff arms and offered Lena a nod that was more assessment than greeting. "Nice place," he said flatly, stepping over the threshold. Tom watched him like one might observe a dormant mine. Cautious, polite, braced for eruption. Over the next few days, Greg settled in like a statue that refused to blink. He rarely spoke, unless asked. He read the newspaper cover to cover, brewed his own coffee with military precision, and watched everyone with the stillness of a man who missed nothing. Lena felt his gaze more than once. He was polite but distant with her. Never warm, never rude, just present. Watching. Always watching. On the third day, she stepped outside to take a call. Derek's voice on the other end was soft, familiar. "I miss you," he said. "I wish you were here." "I can't," she whispered, glancing back at the house. "Even for a drive?" "I don't know. He's in the house." There was a pause. "You sound scared." "I'm not," she lied. When she turned back toward the kitchen window, Greg was standing behind the glass, arms crossed, watching. He didn't flinch when their eyes met, didn't turn away. He just looked, and that was worse. That night, Tom worked late again. Ava was asleep. The house was quiet, except for the ticking of a wall clock. Lena didn't plan to invite Derek over. It just happened. A text. Just for a minute. And then the sound of his car in the driveway, headlights dimmed. She let him in. No words. Just an embrace that told the truth she hadn't said out loud. They kissed in the hallway, slow, familiar now. Her breath hitched as his hands moved to her waist. For a moment, everything else disappeared. Then, 3 sharp knocks at the door. They froze. Another knock. Firm, intentional. Lena's stomach dropped. She opened the door halfway, heart pounding. Greg stood there, his expression unreadable. Derek straightened behind her, instinctively stepping back. Greg's eyes moved between them, slowly, quietly. Then, "You have 5 minutes." Lena's voice cracked. "What?" Greg didn't repeat himself. He turned and walked down the porch steps. Derek ran a hand through his hair. Jesus. She felt cold all over. He won't say anything, right? Derek didn't answer. His silence was answer enough. "I have to go," he said finally, his voice clipped. She nodded, her throat too tight for words. As his car pulled away, the porch light flickered once and went dark. The house was silent when she crept back inside. Greg was in the kitchen, sipping tea. The chair across from him was empty, waiting. He didn't look up as she entered. "I don't judge people for weakness," he said, still staring into his cup, "but I do judge them for cowardice." Lena felt her spine stiffen. "You don't know what my life is like." "No," Greg replied, "but I know what your daughter's face looks like when you come home from somewhere you shouldn't be." That hit harder than yelling would have. Greg stood, washed his cup, and set it in the rack. "Fix it, or it'll fix itself. And you won't like how." He left her standing there, heart pounding, breath shallow, her reflection staring, back from the kitchen window like someone she didn't recognize.